What's up, everybody? So for a minute here I figured I'd talk about music, because music is part of my life that I just could never and would never want to escape. I'm in there listening right now to a band called, it's probably not a band, it's probably a guy, Blue Tech, and it's a techno type band. I was listening to like Blue Tech and Tycho and Water Juice and a few random bands that are just, I say bands because band is the word that's been accustomed to using for so long for music. Most of these are one or two guys, such as say the Chemical Brothers. I was always a big fan of them. Propeller Heads, guys that various singles and duos that would put together techno music and make it phenomenal. And when I was growing up, all my friends played guitar, including myself, and I played bass too, and drums and everything else. And I was always like, well, why doesn't anybody else like techno? Am I the only one? There were people out there, but not as many as in my friend group that liked any type of techno. Anyway, when we got into a band with my brother and I, and our drummer Sam, he played a mini Moog synthesizer. And he was the drummer, but he would also play the Moog with one hand, and he was phenomenal. Just hit a few funky, synthesizer notes here and there, and I always just loved it. And I always wanted to get myself a synthesizer, but could never afford it, of course. So I was inspired to make this after watching a video last night called, it's on Netflix, and it's called I Dream of Wires. And it's about the revolution of the Moog synthesizer, as well as the others, the synthesizer revolution, basically. And how most people couldn't afford a synthesizer for thousands of dollars back then. Then in the 80s, they came back into fashion, or they lost fashion because everybody was into the digital stuff. 80s was all about going digital. And then in the late 80s, early 90s, the stuff became affordable and collectors could finally start getting it. And then later on, starting to realize that old equipment is awesome, but it's not always built too great. Even Moog synthesizers were built pretty crappy as far as the components, because of all they had to work with was what they had to work with. So I'm not going to get into synthesizers here. I wanted to say that the most important component to music is being able to change with music. Now they make the Eurorack synthesizers and make them affordable for anyone. The DJs are starting to go back to playing hard synthesizers with patch cables and cords, and actually touching dials, knobs, actually like doing something, rather than sitting there with the computer and pushing buttons. And when I went to Burning Man, or the local one this year, my buddy was there, Brian, he's a DJ, and we stay at his camp. In the last few years he's gone, I've seen him out there spinning his records, and he let me spin one morning, because I like to DJ too, and he'd always spun vinyl, and he had a little bit of sound effects on the side. He really enjoyed what he did. This year he just sat there the whole time. He didn't even DJ. He left early. I'd asked him, where's his turntables? Well, he had the new computer program, which he said he spent a year trying to learn how to use, and still hasn't even made a song with it yet. This is what's happened to music, is it went digital. And my point being that the musicians are finally saying, we don't want this. I don't want to sit here and make a song on a computer, because it has no soul, it has no heart. And the people who are making music on a computer, it's not about making a quick song, it's about, they want to make something cool. It's just that most people can't afford $10,000 synthesizers. But they're becoming more affordable, and they're coming back into style. So that being said, music being such an important part of my life, it's because the reason why techno is so awesome to me is because people used to go to a band to seek the emotion of the songs. Now we listen to DJs playing music that invokes emotion through the actual frequencies rather than the tones themselves rather than the lyrics. So you're not going to hear a song that you already have an emotion related to. You can hear any song, but the emotion's related to the tones being used. It's invoking emotion upon command, and so it's not about the music anymore. It's about what's behind it. And the person who's creating the music has to have the love in the music if they're going to make it. A musician will understand where I'm coming from on this, It's the analog world is returning, and it has been returning strong. I mean, there's a reason why I go and play my records, and I'll deal with my record player and turntable and needles and dust covers and all that crap. It's because I like the sound of analog, the warm sound of analog. If people didn't, then they wouldn't. not only would they not be going back to analog synthesizers, but they wouldn't be building these giant tube analog synthesizers. Sounds can be made on them that imitate any human or animal if you know how to work it and you can patch the cables together right, the sine waves, and create the right signal. Basically, the understanding of a synthesizer is that you can create any possible sound if you know how to hook them together right and have enough pieces. And this allows the musician to create anything. I saw for this 50th anniversary of the Moog synth, they did a Bach. They composed an entire Bach piece using just the synthesizer. It takes a long time, but that's just it. It's just learning another instrument. And the reason why I'm talking about the synthesizer here is because it never gets enough props. You know, people seem to think that if you're not playing an instrument, then it's just not good enough. Like a guitarist will always scoff at someone who plays techno music, let's say. Say, oh, I create techno. Oh, well, I play guitar or drums. If a person's just touching buttons on a computer and everything pieces itself together and you have autocorrect and you can fill in all these things and patch and fix things, yeah, sure, that's kind of cheating and it's really not as fun. It's kind of like recording your band using GarageBand or, you know, Pro Tools. By the time you're done with it and you've edited it, the love's gone. And that's why we left a lot of our stuff raw when we recorded. Because of that, we were afraid of it being overprocessed. But with the synthesizer, you can't do that. You're there live. You're making the music. You don't want to overdub. You just want to make something raw and strong. It's just like sitting down with a drum rather than a drum machine, or a guitar rather than you know, playing guitar chords on a keyboard or something. A good synth player can play keyboard too, of course, so that's a different story altogether. But I don't know. I just wanted to make a quick video about music. I absolutely love it, and I feel grateful to live in a time when it's available to all of us. Anything you want to hear is here and available. We tend to take it for granted and poke at each other's music, and I'm just saying, love what you love. It's funny because I was actually thinking yesterday, I like jazz, but I don't like blues. And I asked myself, why don't you like blues? And I was talking to somebody about this, and I read this article because I Googled it. I was like, why don't I like blues? Because I love music. And I heard somebody else saying the same thing. They said they're a musician themselves. They love playing blues chords once in a while or listening to an old, you know, B.B. King or some Coltrane, but maybe a little bit of jazz, a little bit of blues, but listening to blues every day is just blah to me. I can't stand it. And it's obviously not because I have no musical heart, because I love music. But I've thought about it a lot, and I realize it's because the lyrics, I don't relate to them. Just like with country music. I can relate to older country music, but not the newer stuff. If you're crying about your dogs and you're losing your car and all that nonsense bullshit that most of these guys sing about, I just can't relate. And it's the same old progression and chords over and over. And it's more about an image than it is about the song. You see what I'm saying? And that's how I feel about blues and country. And of course rock gets there too. All bands, all music does that. My point being, I guess, that we have opinions of what's good music and what's not. And I have no problem with any other type of music. If somebody likes it, they like it. And so, anyway,